What is up, XCFL fans? It's your host, Nick, back with another episode of Around the XCFL. As you all know, we just kicked off our 2021 season, and boy oh boy do we have a fully packed show for you guys today. With that being said, let's just jump right in and check out some scores from this past week of XCFL action. We kicked off our Week 5 with our Thursday night game, which had the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Chicago Bears. The Steelers put up 460 yards of total offense and beat the Bears 23-16. Big Ben threw for 432 yards and 3 scores on the day, with 2 of those going to wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster, who caught 5 balls for 147 yards. Big Ben was sacked 5 times, so the Steelers really got to figure out their offensive line problems if they want Big Ben to make it through the whole season. Next up, we had the Jags heading to KC to take on Aaron Rodgers and the Chiefs. The Chiefs defense showed up in this one, holding Jags' Carlos Williams Sr. to just 5 yards on 13 carries. Jags stud receiver Jacoby Askew had another big game, snagging 6 balls for 129 yards, but the 2 early TDs get it done for the Chiefs as they win 17-7 and move to 3-2 on the year. Following that game, we had a matchup between the 0-4 Oakland Raiders and the 1-3 G-Men. This game was ugly, with only 3 points being scored in the second half. Giants QB Matthew Stafford gets it done, throwing for 248 yards and 2 touchdowns, 1 to each of his star wide receivers, Odell Beckham Jr. and Amari Cooper. Giants win 14-13. The next game was an NFC South matchup between the Saints and the Panthers. Another low-scoring affair. The Saints failed to score a TD, but came away with a win on a late Harmon Tedesco field goal. Rookie Panther wide receiver Charlton Enzor had a big game, catching 6 balls for 184 yards. Saints moved to 2-2 on the year. Next up, we had a battle between the top 2 teams in the NFC East, the undefeated Dallas Cowboys and the 3-1 Washington Redskins. Dak Prescott throws for 272 yards and 2 TDs, both of those to last season's NFC Wide Receiver of the Year, Rashawn Brackens. Also a big game out of new Cowboys defensive tackle Davin Ledyard, who had 3 sacks and a key forced fumble. Ledyard was the guy Dallas got back in the big 3-team trade consisting of Savon Bellamy and Ezekiel Elliott. Cowboys win and remain undefeated, 27-20. Moving on to the AFC East, where we had the Jets travel to Foxborough to take on the division-leading Patriots. Another efficient game from Brissett and a big game from Eddie George II helped the Pats steal the win, 20-6. Next up, we had the red-hot Bucs head to Philly to take on the new-look Eagles. The Bucs defense came to play, holding the Eagles to just 78 total yards of offense. Bucs running back Adonis Logan rushes for 121 yards and a TD, while second-year tight end Kendall Rollins snags 6 balls for 75 yards and a touchdown. Bucs shut out the Eagles 20-0. For the next game, we had the 49ers heading to Ford Field to take on the struggling Detroit Lions. The Niners looked to break a 2-game losing skid, and that's exactly what they did. This game came down to the last few seconds, with the Lions having the ball down 6 on the 5-yard line. Running a slant route to wide receiver Will Fuller V. Fuller looked like he secured the TD, but cornerback Lamar Powell got a hand in there and broke up the pass, sealing the win for the Niners, 23-17. Next game, we had the Chargers look to remain undefeated as they took on the division rival Denver Broncos. Melvin Gordon gets it done on the ground, rushing for 148 yards and 2 scores, and the Broncos offense couldn't ever quite get it going, struggling to pass 150 total yards on the day. Chargers moved to 5-0 in a big 35-6 win. The next game, we had a fun one between Coach Jack's Rams and Coach White's Colts. Coach White said before the game plan was to keep Keith Marshall contained all game long, and they were not able to do that, as Marshall busted out 168 yards and 3 scores on the day. Colts quarterback Andrew Luck throws for 303 yards and 3 scores in a tough losing effort, while second-year tight end Will Mouty caught 7 balls for 122 yards and 2 scores. Next up, we had the NFC North showdown between the Vikings and the Packers. The Vikings put up 52 points and whoop on the Packers, 52-26. Left end Nate Straczynski tallied 2.5 sacks on the day, while quarterback Teddy Bridgewater throws for 300 yards and 3 scores. The Vikes scored 4 offensive touchdowns, had a pick 6, and a kick return for a TD on the day, in a big win to move to 4-0 on the young season. Following that game, we had a matchup between the Cards and the Seahawks. Offensive explosions from both teams, but 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns from Arizona seals the deal. Cardinals win 31-27. Rookie quarterback Braylon Ryans throws for 323 yards and 4 touchdowns, 2 of those being to his fellow rookie wide receiver Jordan Garrode. Big win to advance to 5-0 on the year for the Cardinals. Next up, we had the Browns take on the Titans. Browns made the decision to go with veteran QB Matt Ryan, who had a huge game, throwing for 334 yards and 3 scores. The Browns defense played tough, sacking Marcus Mariota 5 times. Browns win 28-17. The last game of the week, we had the Bills travel to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. This Monday Night Football game turned out to be a blowout, as the Bills' offense exploded for 520 total yards. Rookie quarterback Ben Woody tosses 4 touchdowns, while rookie running back Xavier Amon runs for 200 yards in a big 45-10 win. And that will wrap up our Week 5 scores from around the XCFL. Let's go ahead and take a look at the AFC division standings and see who's off to a hot start. The Steelers sit atop the AFC North, but the Bengals follow closely behind, with both teams having just 1 loss apiece. The AFC South is off to a slow start, with 3 teams tied atop the division at 2-3. The Pats and Bills are tied for the lead in the AFC East, but after a big Week 1 win over the Bills, the Pats hold the tiebreaker. And with the Raiders' recent struggles, it seems to be a one-team race in the AFC West, with the Chargers sitting atop the division, 5-0. Let's go ahead and move on over to the NFC division standings, and we can take a look at the NFC North and see the Vikings have full control of this division, with the Packers, Lions, and Bears all sitting with just 1-1 apiece. The Bucs also have control of the NFC South, sitting at 4-1, and the Cowboys look to win the NFC East again this season, as they are sitting at 5-0 so far. And finally, the NFC West. The Cards have control so far, but the rest of the division is in striking distance. Let's take a look at the league leaders around the XCFL. Here we have our passing leaders, where you can see quarterback Chisholm Bragg of the San Francisco 49ers has the top spot, passing for 1,397 yards and 11 touchdowns. Brent Hundley of the Green Bay Packers follows just behind him, 1 yard shy, with 1,396 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 4 picks. Dallas's quarterback Dak Prescott sitting in the number 3 spot with 1,304 yards and 10 touchdowns and only 3 picks. Newly acquired quarterback Noah Hilton of the Washington Redskins sitting in the 4 spot, and Jags quarterback Jordan Northrup sitting there in the 5 spot with 8 touchdowns and 7 picks. We'll switch gears here and head over to our rushing leaders around the XCFL, where you'll see running back Ezekiel Elliott of the Arizona Cardinals holds the top spot, carrying the ball 107 times for 732 yards. Keith Marshall sitting in the 2 spot of the Rams with 101 carries for 600 yards. Rookie running back from the Buffalo Bills, Xavier Amon, carrying the ball 48 times for 426 yards after his big 200-yard performance in Week 5. Watts Kirksey down in Philly, carrying the ball 57 times for 418 yards, sitting in the 4 spot. And we got Melvin Gordon of the San Diego Chargers, carrying the ball 82 times for 404 yards, rounding out the top 5. We'll head on over and look at our receiving leaders, where we have Malcolm Hemsley of the Saints, catching 26 balls for 512 yards and 2 scores on the season. We got wide receiver Brandon Cooks of the 49ers, catching 20 passes for 466 yards and 4 scores. Stud wide receiver Jacoby Askew down in Jacksonville, 29 catches for 465 yards and 2 scores. We got Will Fuller, the 5th of the Detroit Lions, catching 28 balls for 410 yards and 2 scores. And rounding out the top 5, tight end of the Indianapolis Colts, William Maudy, with 22 catches, almost 400 yards, and 4 scores. All right, let's change gears here and take a look at our XCFL big board, where we can get a look at all the top draft prospects for this season. In the number 1 spot, we have the pass rushing outside linebacker out of Texas. Romel Glenn is by far the best pass rusher in this draft. He has been terrorizing Big 12 quarterbacks all season long. Standing at 6'2", 250 pounds, Glenn has the size needed to be an elite XCFL pass rusher. At number 2, we have Louisville defensive tackle Desmond Urschel. Urschel is a big boy. At 6'4", 294, he can play in either a 3-4 or a 4-3 defensive front and be very effective. He's excellent at shedding blocks and taking on multiple blockers, freeing up linebackers to make plays. Sitting at number 3, we have a very talented Auburn wide receiver, Russell LeBlanc. LeBlanc has the best hands in the draft. He has the ability to come in day 1 and be a starter in the XCFL. He's made big plays and highlight reel catches all season long in Auburn. Someone is going to get an Antonio Brown type wide receiver here. At number 4, we have our top quarterback in the 2021 class, Eric Frank out of Pitt. Frank has everything you're looking for in a franchise quarterback. Standing at 6'6", 230 pounds, with a cannon for an arm and pinpoint accuracy, Frank will be a franchise-changing quarterback. Don't be surprised if we see Eric Frank's name announced number 1 overall come draft day. At number 5, we have outside linebacker Marcus Hodge out of Texas A&M. Hodge is a sure tackling outside linebacker that punishes ball carriers. He forced 8 fumbles last season for the Aggies, as well as leading them in tackles. In what is a very deep safety class, Vasti Lewis out of Miami is the most talented of the bunch. Lewis is a hard hitter and great at playing near the line of scrimmage. He flies all over the field for the Miami Hurricanes. Think Troy Polamalu type player. awesome leader, and a very intelligent football player. At number 7, we have the big power back out of Florida State, Larez Baptiste. At 6'2", 238 pounds, this guy is a load when he gets going. He went all of last season without fumbling the football and scored 24 touchdowns for the Seminoles. Baptiste is a pile mover and a nightmare to take down for DBs when he gets into the open field. In the 8th spot, we have our top-rated cornerback, Cornelius Billups. Teammate of Marcus Hodge at Texas A&M, Billups is a legit cover corner. He's equally talented in playing man or zone and is an ultimate competitor. He loves taking on the opposing team's number 1 wide receiver and shadowing him all game long. At number 9, we have the free safety out of Stanford, Stephen Buchanan. Buchanan is one of those high-character guys, very smart football player. He may not have all the physical tools like all our other top prospects, but he makes up for it with his intense football IQ. And rounding out the top 10, we have another safety, Robert Means, out of Ole Miss. Means is a playmaker. Whether it's making a big hit, batting away passes, or picking it off and taking it to the house, Means can do it all. He led the Rebels in tackles, forced fumbles, interceptions, and touchdowns last season. This guy could be a very popular riser when it comes draft day. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the top offenses in the XCFL through Week 5 so far. In the number 1 spot, we have the Buffalo Bills with 1,843 yards of offense, averaging 29 points per game. Number 2 spot, we got the San Francisco 49ers, just under the Bills at 1,805 yards, and they are league-leading 29.8 points per game. We got the Rams in the 3 spot with 1,768 yards, averaging 28.2 points per game, and the Packers and Cardinals rounding out the top 5. Let's go ahead and take a look at our top defenses around the XCFL. The Cincinnati Bengals sit in the number 1 spot, although they've only played 4 games to date, but that linebacking crew is for real, only allowing 646 yards through 4 games and only 42 points. The Buccaneers and their very talented defense sit in the number 2 hole, only giving up 933 yards through 5 games and only 47 points. We got the Minnesota Vikings sitting there at number 3, giving up just over 1,000 yards and just over 50 points so far. And we got the Steelers sitting at number 4 and the Buffalo Bills rounding out the top 5. Let's go ahead and take a look at some trades that have happened so far in the XCFL this season. The first one was between the San Francisco 49ers and the Tennessee Titans. The Titans get the defensive end they were looking for in Robert Quinn, also adding a stud corner in William Jackson III, and getting a replacement linebacker in Tyler McCordace. The Niners get the outside linebacker they were looking for in the young, talented Adrian Swan, and then add Lindell Best to take the spot of William Jackson, who they just traded away. The next trade will be between the Bills and the Bengals, and this one shocked everyone. The Bills sent away 2-time MVP, Super Bowl MVP running back Darrell Jackson. The Bengals send back running back Akram Wadley and right outside linebacker Micah Awe. You know, that was a big loss for the Bills, but they felt like they drafted a stud, and he really has paid off in Oman. And the final trade looks very familiar. As we saw just a few seasons ago, the Patriots actually sent Jacoby Brissett to the Eagles, and the Eagles sent Carson Wentz to the Patriots. But now today, this year, the two teams are going to swap back, which has never been done before, as the Eagles will take Wentz back on and send Brissett back to the Patriots. Very interesting, but anything goes in the XCFL. All right, let's take a look at our XCFL Game of the Week. Week 6, it's between the New England Patriots and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Both teams sitting at 4-1. Both very talented teams, very talented defenses, efficient offenses. Adonis Logan has been huge for the Buccaneers this year. And newly acquired quarterback Jacoby Brissett has been very efficient for the Patriots in his first couple games back. I think we're going to go here with a Patriot win 21-20, but it will be close. Look for a great game between two great coaches. And we're excited to see what happens. All right, we'll finish this broadcast off with a few quick announcements. First off, we'll be kicking off our live game broadcast with the XCFL Game Day crew, Mike, Ike, and Heath up in the booth. We have our first live broadcast tomorrow night, Saturday, around 9 p.m. Eastern Time, when we have the Bengals taking on the San Diego Chargers. Make sure you guys tune in and what should be an awesome game. And one final announcement, we got Madden 18 coming. Make sure you're thinking about your top 5 teams. We'll be gathering those from you soon so we can figure out who is going to be playing with who come Madden 18. Thank you for tuning in, everyone, and I hope you enjoyed the show. As always, I'm your host, Nick, and this was another episode of Around the XCFL.